In today's episode, every time you hear Molly say her key word, atmosphere, make sure that you take a drink or eat the chocolate that you're not supposed to have.
Here you go, one beer, one chocolate.
Welcome to today's episode.
Welcome. Mom.
So we have three things as you're building your book we want you to think about that's really important.
Yes, really important.
You to think about how will your book stand out? What will make it original? Who does it appeal to? And what style would you say it needs to have?
I think it's really important to think about how does your book stand out, because there are so many books out there, whether they're indie, whether they're traditionally published, whether you're looking at a book in the library or a bookstore or on Amazon or whatever. You have to think, why is someone picking your book? Why are they going to look at potentially tens or hundreds of books and they're going to take yours? What about it is going to grab them? Is it going to be the atmosphere, the setting, the concept, the high level, the character, maybe even the art? I don't know, but there has to be something that calls to someone, right? That says, reach out, take me, pick me. And it takes them away from everything else.
And I would say that that's most important if you want to be published. But if you're just writing this for yourself, which is totally fine, I think it has to stand out from the other books that are trying to get your attention. So how is it standing out to you at this moment? Is it standing out to you because I'm choosing to write this book right now because I'm going through a really hard time in my life? And this book is ultimately a redemption, super hopeful into the purpose of humanity. And so it's got this, for me, it has the ability to lift me up. So if nobody ever reads my book, when I write, I have to be in a better mind space, and that's therapeutic for me. And I feel like that's enough.
Or it's enough that maybe you want to share this book with your family and friends. There's lots of people out there who want to write about their own life experience and their own, maybe like a memoir, to give to their family when they're older, when they're past, when, whatever might happen. And that is a thing only you can do and only your book can do. And that is standing out from everything else out there.
Well said. Well said.
So the second thing that we want you to think about when you're writing is, who does this appeal to?
Let's assume that you're going to head down the publishing path. If you are writing this for a family or just for you, then you already know who it appeals to. So if you're heading down the publishing path, the reason you want to do that is because you're catering it to your readers. And Stephen King said it very, very well, where you want to have what did he call it? I had it and then I lost it. What did he call it? It wasn't the dream reader.
Molly's like, Google.
The perfect reader.
Ideal.
The ideal reader. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to start again?
No, I'm going to keep all this wonderful stuff in.
Okay. You're not.
Maybe for Molly's eyebrows, I will.
Sorry. So Stephen King talks about having his ideal reader. As you are writing this book, you also need to have an ideal reader. So take a second, envision who that is. How old are they? What is their profession? Are they religious? What is their family like? Where do they like to shop? What do they like to eat? What social media platform, and this is super important for marketing, what social media platform are they using? And then as you're writing your book, keep that person in your mind and write to them, write the book that you think that they would want.
I think this is so important. If you're like, my books that I'm going to work on right now is middle grade. And I think that's so important to make sure that I'm not using things that are either too high or too low for them. because middle grade, you don't want to be talked down to, but there are also certain things that aren't quite appropriate yet. So it's kind of this fine balance where you've got some intriguing topics that you can deal with adult topics, but you have to deal with them with a little bit more, I think, sensibility, and your word choice needs to be a little bit more innocent than it would be an adult, obviously adult or YA. Yeah.
And I think we think about this a lot when we're thinking about age category. But something else to think about is when you're writing it, making sure that the language you use, the metaphors, the allusions, the stuff that you're pulling on is something that the reader has a connection to. For example, if your ideal reader is from the American South, hypothetically, right? Or your ideal reader is in their 40s or whatever it is, then if you make references to the bubbler and how cold it is in March or something like that, that's not something that they're not going to know what that is. Only people from Wisconsin know what a bubbler is.
I was gonna say, Molly, what's a bubbler?
So it's a term, it's water fountain. Right?
Oh.
Or whether it's the movies you're referencing, the slang, whatever it might be, that matters, and not just for age category.
Right.
Very true.
Okay, so you have thought about how it stands out. Maybe you don't care. You've thought about who it appeals to, and maybe the answer is just you, and there's no problem with that. We just want to make sure you know the answer. There's no right or wrong here. This is English. Everybody gets an A just for showing up. If you're still watching, you get an A. All right, and now maybe the most interesting and difficult question to talk about, which is, what style will you write your book in? So what does that question even mean? What style will I write my book in? What?
To me, it means like, are you going to be formal or informal? Are you going to be, is that what you're getting at? Am I wrong?
Well, I think style has so many components. So if you think about decorating a home, that's why we're using the home analogy, and I tell you the whole house is decorated in just white with small gold accents. That's very different than if I tell you the entire home is a cabin decorated in plaid with lots of animals remains,
Oh, I thought it was going cozy there for a moment, and then you brought the animal remains in it, and I was
Well,
like, oh, now we're in a thriller.
What are they called? The heads?
Taxidermy.
Yes.
Mounted heads.
When I'm in Montana, they're everywhere. You can't rent a cabin that there aren't dead things looking at you. And I'm sorry, it's just a thing for me. So that's an image. It gives you a feeling. You got, either you love that, you think it's beautiful, or you think, oh, it's dead and it's looking at me.
And it's really different, right? Like Morgan was first describing, a cabin, and it's filled with flannels. And in my mind went straight to, there's a cozy fireplace.
There could
right?
be.
It's warm and lovely. And this is now maybe a cozy mystery type book, right? This is a book that wants to give you a hug. And then you brought in the taxidermied heads. And then I'm like, oh, now we're like a horror story in the woods, isolationist, survivalist story. They're very different things. And they can start with like kind of the same idea to begin with, but then it's up to you to twist it in a way that's right for you, and twist it in right back to that atmosphere word that I like so much today. What style, what route are you going to go down? Because you don't want, back to mistakes, it can be really frustrating if you start writing your book as if it's this lovely, cozy mystery that's giving you a hug. And then by the end, you realize that it actually is supposed to be a thriller, scary, isolationist horror. And you have to go rewrite half your book because they don't match, right? You didn't decide at the beginning and they don't match. And now you have to go back and, like Teresa said, knock down walls, replaster, get rid of those taxidermied heads, or, go call a taxidermist and bring some in. Whatever that, that analogy for you is, if you know ahead of time, if you know when you're starting, It means potentially less work down the road.
Is that
I
so?
think the atmosphere in the room is good.
The atmosphere in the room is awesome. While we're looking at style, please make sure you consider what I think is the most important question about style, which is POV. Will you write in first person, third person limited or close, or third person omniscient, or will you break all the rules and do second person?
That would definitely be rule breaking.
If you want it close and cozy, which one would you guys pick? If you want to be close to the narrator, you would choose.
Oh, one. Yeah, first person.
So
Or
I
third person limited, you can get away with that depending on your genre conventions and what you're trying to do. You can get really close with third person limited.
You can. And the nice thing as well, if you're building a romance, third person limited, that jumps between your two romantic characters. Very, very, what word am I looking for?
Popular?
Traditional.
Oh, traditional.
Popular and traditional. Yeah.
I would say POV comes down to me two things. One, your personal preference and comfort level. There are certain POVs that you might feel more comfortable writing and you feel fit better with your style and with what's natural for you. The second one is the conventions, right? So if you are trying to traditionally publish, depending on the genre and style of the book that you want to put out, there oftentimes are conventions to what are typical point of views. So those are really the two main consideration: what works for you, what's standard for the genre, and then you can pick from there.
And what's standard for the genre? If you want to publish, it's got to be in the last 5 years.
Yep.
So you can't comp anything and tell me, oh, but in the classics they did it this way, because unfortunately, like, that was my big mistake. I thought that if I did things the way that they were classically done, that would still be accepted, and that's a big no. So you have to read what's in your genre right now, and it's a good idea to kind of mirror. If you want to be published, it's a good idea to mirror the style. If this is just for you, have fun, do whatever you want to do, but think about how you want that style to feel to even yourself, because you're building that cabin in the woods. Do you want it cozy, or do you want to have something staring at you?
So I'm actually going to push back on one thing that you said.
Okay.
Because you said, if you want to be published, focusing on the last 5 years, 100% agree with that. If you want to be trad published, you want to go indie, or what's used to be called self-publishing, I would highly recommend you look at the last 5 years, but you don't have to, because it's your book and your publishing path. And there are very successful indie authors that have looked 10 and 15 years back and been successful. But if you're going trad, absolutely.
That's great.
I think ultimately it does come down to, and that's a great point, Teresa, this is your book. You need to write the book that you want to write. But if you are up in the air and you don't know, right, and you're between different choices, and you're like, what choice do I make? I don't know. Then this is when you start coming in with these other considerations. If it's your vision that this is second person, if it's your vision that this book is first person, then you do your vision.
Preach. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you want to be traditionally published, but it's your vision and that's what's best for you, for you're telling your story that you want to tell, then do it.
Absolutely.
Build the atmosphere you want to build.
Oh, drink. And with that, we helped you think about your atmosphere through 3 questions. Those were: how will your book stand out? Who does it appeal to? And the most important question, I think, what style will you write it in? What will your style look and feel like? Okay, we're going to break there.
Atmosphere. So if you want to keep drinking with us every time I say my key word, you'd better like and subscribe so that you don't miss any opportunity.
You can also find us on our webpage, somesagesofthepages.com. and on all the major social medias.
Wow. I
Thank
don't
you.
know.
End scene. Pow!
Pow!
I just felt like it needed like something.
Pew, pew, pew. I'll
Just,
put
just like a
rainbows.
giant thing that just says the
Rainbows.
end. Get out of here.
Fireworks.
Screams.